She is Ursula Andress. No more introduction needed. Hi guys, so before we get into it, a few quick announcements. Firstly, you'll find all my other Hammer reviews in my Hammer playlist. Secondly, there will be spoilers today. Does it matter? Personally, I don't think it does, but make your own mind up. Thirdly, this review is dedicated to the memory of Bernard Cribbins, an actor who played the role of Job in this movie. He passed away just a couple of days ago, actually. Now, I'm not doing this review because of Cribbins. It's a weird coincidence, this. A couple of weeks ago, I got this film on DVD. I'd never seen it before. I watched it, and then literally a couple of days after that, I heard in the news that Cribbins had died. I'm not sure I even recognised his name at the time. I sort of looked at his filmography randomly and saw She on there and thought, oh, I was just watching him like 2 nights ago. Normally, I don't really review fantasy films. I just stick to horrors and thrillers when it comes to my full-length reviews. But when I was watching She, I realised that it is more like a fantasy horror film. I mean, the main evil goddess in this, played by Andress, she's more hideous than any Dracula or Mummy or Baron Frankenstein or any creature or villain from the Hammer horror films. She does some really despicable things in this film. So for me, this is probably more horror than fantasy. So to give you an idea of the plot, we begin in Palatine in 1918. The British Army have just finished helping out with some war or something, and these 3 ex-soldiers are sort of drinking their time away in a bar, wondering what to do next. They don't really look like soldiers. They look more like Dad's Army. I mean, you've got Peter Cushing in there wearing a beard and clearly is in his mid-50s at this point. That night that they're all out drinking, one of these characters, Leo, he's approached by Aisha, the demon goddess. I'm not sure if she was originally just a normal human and she became immortal, or whether this character has been a demon of some sort all along. It's not really explained in the movie. But Leo is approached by Aisha. She thinks that he is her lover from 2,000 years ago, reborn, because he looks like this person. And so she wants to make Leo her new immortal husband in her secret kingdom in the desert, like hundreds of miles away. But she's not completely convinced that this is her old lover reborn, so she wants to give him a test to make sure. So she says to him, look, if you can cross this huge desert and make it to the secret kingdom, then I will be completely convinced that you are the person I've been waiting 2,000 years to see again. Leo accepts her offer. I guess he thinks it would be quite a cool thing to live forever, being married to someone who looks like Ursula Andress. Can't blame him. So he and his 2 buddies set off on this journey across the desert. And that is the first half of this film, following that journey. And then in the second half, we then see what this secret city of Kumar actually looks like. But also we realise at this point, and the characters do, that this goddess is a bit of a tyrant and she runs a pretty nasty regime, and these characters' lives are very much going to be in danger. First thing to say is here that Andress is excellent as Aisha. She's an actress of limited range, but this is well suited for her. You know, Aisha is very cold and icy, and it just suits Ursula Andress a lot, I think. I mean, she's a bit like a female Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know, there's only so much she can do in terms of acting, but when she gets a role like this, I think it's well suited for her. I've only seen her in 2 other films. One is Dr. No, the excellent Dr. No, and the other one would be Mountain of the Cannibal God from the 1970s, which is not such a good film. She was absolutely in the peak of her career when she did She, and I think she actually looks better in this film somehow than even when she did Dr. No. Aisha does this thing in this film. So when Leo is in the process of still crossing the desert with his buddies, he has doubts now and again as to whether he's doing the right thing. And when this happens, Aisha seems to come to him in a dream. This happens at least a couple of times. And she says the same thing every time. She sort of holds her arms out longingly and says, you can have immortality. If you just make it to the end, you can have glory and riches and fame. And then Leo every time replies with, and I can have you. And Aisha says, everything your heart desires, and it's a little bit suspicious the way she phrases that. Why can't she just say yes? Why does she have to give this politician's answer that's a little bit not quite convincing? If it had been me in Leo's shoes, I think I might have just turned around at that point and gone back to Palatine. I think I might have been thinking at this juncture, she's not going to let me into her bed. But Leo carries on. He's clearly convinced, but these dream sequences are a little bit funny and suspicious at the same time. There are a number of famous actors in this. We've already talked about Andress, we've touched upon Bernard Cribbins, we've also got Peter Cushing. He plays one of the three buddies. He's like a scraggly professor in this. He's got a very good role. There's nothing for him in Kumar, but he wants to go along anyway to support his buddy. And like he says in the script, if he doesn't go, then he'll probably spend the rest of his life having sleepless nights, wondering what he might have seen had he gone. He gets lots of really good philosophical dialogue. Cushing, he's really good. We've also got Christopher Lee. So this is a Cushing and Lee vehicle, and I still maintain that I have never seen a bad film with both Cushing and Lee in it. If you can think of one, then do let me know in the comments and I will at least consider it, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. Lee does not play one of the three buddies, so time between Cushing and Lee on screen is limited in this. Lee plays, I can't remember his character names, I'm just going to call him Christopher Lee. He plays like the captain of the guards in the city of Kumar, so he's like Aisha's right-hand man, and he's got a little bit of an interesting subplot going on because even though he works for Aisha and does her bidding, he's a little bit bitter that she's never picked him to be her immortal husband. He doesn't see why she should step over him and just constantly wait years and decades for this other guy to turn up by being reborn. So this little subplot is sort of simmering away to one side, and it may come into play for the finale. He gets to wear lots of different helmets and skull caps in this, Lee, and there's one particular skull cap that he wears that absolutely cracks me up. It's like all white, and it just makes him look like he's about to go off and race David Carradine in Death Race 2000. It really tickled me when I saw it. We've also got Andre Morel in this, my third favourite Hammer actor. Treat. Having said that, I didn't actually recognise Morel until I saw his name in the credits after the film. He plays a kind of peasant in this whose face is mostly covered by facial hair, so he's not easily recognisable. He doesn't get many scenes. He plays the father of Ursula, a Palestinian girl. She's one of the main characters, albeit she's not played by anybody a lot of people would recognise, I guess, but she's like the counterpoint to Aisha in this film. So Leo is attracted by two different women. He's attracted by Ursula, the good and very human woman. He's also attracted by Aisha, the evil, not very good woman, but she can offer things that Ursula can't. So she can offer immortality and, glory and riches, that kind of thing. And then someone who has the body of Ursula Andress. Not that Ursula is bad looking at all. In fact, she's very, very nice. I do think, though, that the relationship, if you can call it that, between Leo and Ursula is probably the one thing that I would criticise slightly about this film, especially in the way that they meet. So they meet in this bar, and Leo's just being really creepy in that scene. I don't understand how Ursula can fall hard for Leo based on this first meeting. She seems to fall for him just because she likes the feel of his lips when they briefly kiss, and also because I guess she feels sorry for him that he's being pulled towards Aisha. But that first conversation, I think that should have been written a lot differently, not just have Leo being really creepy, because essentially all he does in that first meeting, he's not interested in any conversation. He just wants to get this girl, Ursula, out into an alleyway as quick as possible so he can have his wicked way with her. But instead of doing that, I think they should have had a much longer conversation, make it less about sexual attraction and more about just two people getting to know each other, getting to enjoy each other's company. And then if they'd have played it that way, then later on it would have added more weight to the fact that Ursula is constantly willing to put her life in danger to try and help out Leo, try and keep him away from Aisha. But that's my only criticism about the film, to be honest, how these two particular characters meet. The rest of it is pretty solid, pretty excellent. The list of things to enjoy about this film is a hell of a lot longer, though. So even though I don't like that early conversation between Leo and Estain, there is a really cool bar fight that takes place in the same scene. I think Leo and Estain have actually left the room at this point. So if you've seen a lot of movies, you would have seen a scene at some point where somebody throws a punch in a bar, and this just leads to everybody going at it in like some kind of big mass brawl with people smashing chairs over people's backs and stuff. You see it a lot in those old school westerns, but it's complete movie bullshit. I mean, I can remember in my younger days going to nightclubs and seeing somebody throw a punch across the other side of the room, and the bouncers have had to come and chuck them out. But one thing you never see is like the whole club suddenly get into a big mass punch up. It just never happens. It's totally something that only happens in movies, and you see it here as well. I also love the journey across the desert in this. It's full of tension because it does feel like the characters could genuinely run out of water. There's a threat from bandits. Leo has his nighttime visits from Aisha via dream sequences. And there's depth in the long shots. It feels like they went to a proper exotic location for these desert scenes. It's not like, say, the 1959 Mummy, where the desert scenes feel like they're in a studio. Now, I do think that The Mummy is still a slightly better film than this one overall, but I love the fact that this film seems to have quite a decent budget. They can make the locations look pretty tip-top. Once we get to Kuma, there's this excellent scene where it looks like Leo might get sacrificed in a voodoo ceremony, but it's really well directed, and it's actually quite tense, waiting to see how this thing will play out. There's also some good music in this film. This has a very nice main theme tune. It really captures the wonderment that a guy would feel, I guess, if he was in the process of possibly being ensnared by someone like Aisha. But the tune, it doesn't just capture the wonderment, it also captures the danger of that just lurking beneath the surface. There is one thing that I wanted to mention about this film that is probably neither good nor bad. It's just the fact that it's so shocking, some of the stuff that you actually watch in this. I mean, at one point, Aisha executes 15 men at the same time, not in a painless way either. I mean, she has these men thrown into these lava pits, and it's not a nice way to go, that. It's a really horrible scene, and it really takes you by surprise. There's something about people dying from a position of captivity in movies that I just find extra shocking. You know, I mean, if these same 15 characters had been free and outside of their chains and running around, and let's say Aisha's guards had been chasing them and killed them that way, yeah, that would still be horrific, but at least those victims would have still been able to write their own endings, sort of. They could have fought back, they could have tried hiding, they could have tried teaming up against the guards. But when characters die and there's literally nothing they can do about it, I just find that extra cruel. And I can remember feeling this way about other movies I've seen. When I was a kid, I saw RoboCop 2, and there's a corrupt cop in that film who gets cut up by the main villain, Kane. But it's not the fact that he gets cut up that really freaked me out as a kid. It's the fact that there was nothing he could have done about it. He was literally tied to a bed. He had no choice in that. So yeah, you get to see some horrific things in this. And there's another moment where one of the main characters actually gets burned alive. Did not see that coming. You don't actually see the burning, but we know it happens because a vase is presented in one of the later scenes that has the ashes in it, and yeah, did not see that coming as well. Aisha is one mean woman. Let's just put that out there. But yeah, I got a lot out of this film that I didn't expect. I mean, I just thought this was going to be a gentle fantasy film with, you know, Peter Cushing getting a bit giddy around Ursula Andress, but what I actually got was a film that really made me think and made me feel a little bit emotional at times. It was quite eye-opening. Time to show you my version of the film that I own. Here is my DVD copy of She. It's very much bare bones. There's no features on this, and the picture quality, I mean, I don't think they've done anything with this, in all honesty, since the very day it was released. It's very scratchy. I mean, it's still watchable, and after a point you sort of stop noticing the scratches, but I'd love to see a remaster of this. I mean, if they did a proper Blu-ray of this, the desert scenes in particular could look quite incredible. The film is a U, by the way. A U. Are they serious? this is a horror film. It would have raised my eyebrows if it had been a PG. I mean, there is mass murder in this film. People get burned alive in lava in this film. People are offered up as sacrifices in voodoo ceremonies in this film. People are in the desert gasping for breath. Are they for real? That's very, very strange, but hey-ho. Right, let's get to the bag of terror and find out what sort of score I'm going to give this. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 bloody axes out of 5. I really enjoyed this way more than I thought I was going to. It's got a really good adventure feel to it, certainly a lot of horror aspects to it, and it really, really impressed me. For me, this has got to be sort of in the upper tiers of Hammer, really. So yeah, that was my review of She, 4 out of 5, and at some point I will have to come back and do the sequel. I believe there was a second film for this, The Vengeance of She, albeit no Cushing, Lee or Andress, so I guess that would be a warning sign that things would not be so great second time around, but we will see another day. Until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.